Okay, today we're going to talk about Bhagavad Gita for yoga practitioners. This is a presentation originally by Pandit Atulji, so I'm going to try to teach it. I know he teaches it much better, so I'll try to do it some justice, but this is a topic that's very dear to my heart. So it's a joy for me to attempt to try to share it with you. I'm going to start with a prayer to Lord Ganesh. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. All right. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, but it is for Hindus, it is the holy text, one of the holiest texts. It is considered the absolute, if you were to take the cream of, if you were to condense the Vedas and the Upanishads and all the philosophical texts into one beautiful text of 700 verses, 18 chapters, it is the Bhagavad Gita. It is the discourse, the dialogue between Sri Krishna, who is God, with Arjun, who is the devotee, who symbolizes all of us, who symbolizes the human condition. So it's a very intimate talk. We are privy to their conversation to each other through a medium named Sanjay, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But that conversation is really meant for us, even though we're kind of listening in on the conversation between Krishna and Arjun. That conversation, that dialogue, whatever Krishna is teaching to Arjun is meant to be heard by us. So we imagine ourselves in the place of Arjun, and we have our own private discussion or dialogue with God. So that is the Bhagavad Gita. So this is kind of what we will cover in this presentation. Again, this is new to me, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. But we'll talk about the general meaning of yoga, the basic concept of Atman, which is the self or the super soul. We'll talk about the Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, yoga and lifestyle yoga, and the mind in modern life. Okay? So the Mahabharata is it is, I believe, the longest poem ever recorded in the history of mankind. It is an epic, and it's a very fascinating epic between two kingdoms, or two opposing, I should say, sides. It is actually a very beautiful epic, and you can actually see there have been countless books and TV shows made based on the Mahabharata, and the Mahabharata spins off thousands of stories and parables and anecdotes that are used so regularly. It's such a part of the Indian culture that even the sayings, that the proverbs that we use in our language often have their root in the Mahabharata. So in the context of this epic, the Mahabharata is a war between two sides, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. It's a long story, so I won't give you the background exactly between how that fight happened. But Arjuna is a Pandav prince, and he is in war. He's locked in war, in deadly combat. He and his 4 brothers are in combat with their cousins called the Kauravas. And because it was a very political war, loyalties and things were tested, many of Arjun's loved ones and dear ones, for whatever reasons, were forced to fight. For political reasons, were forced to fight on the opposing side, the bad side. We'll just call them the bad side. So his gurus, his teachers, a lot of his brother-in-laws, all of those people, even though he loved them and they loved each other, because of their allegiances to the king or past obligations they had to fulfill to the other king, they had to fight. They were forced to fight on the bad side, the Kaurav side. And so when Arjuna comes out to the battlefield on the day of the battle, he's standing there surveying across the field who's on the other side, and he can see all of his loved ones. And it's actually, if you watch the TV show, it's very touching. He's looking at them, and there's just this sadness that the both sides have. Many of the parties, some of them really, there's a vendetta between them, but genuinely, a lot of men on both sides are looking at each other with sadness that, hey, I'm so sorry I have to fight on this side. It's nothing personal. I love you, but this is, and this is heart-wrenching. So Arjun's looking over the sea of army, kind of arrayed on the other side of the field, and he sees his beloved Guru Dronacharya. He sees his grand uncle Bhishma. These are all loved ones. And then when he sees that, he freaks out. Arjuna is a warrior of unparalleled might and strength. He is the best archer that India ever produced. And he was famous for archery. So you always see Arjun with a bow and arrow in his hand. So when Arjun sees the army and he sees all of his loved ones, he knew they were going to be fighting, but then when it actually comes to the day and he actually physically sees them on the other side and it dawns on him that this is real, he freaks out. He has a panic attack. He actually describes his panic and describes the physical symptoms. His hair stands on end. His bow slips from his hand. His legs feel weak, and he just slumps into the chariot. And Krishna, who is Almighty God, actually is acting as his charioteer, as his driver, so to speak. And Krishna said, okay, we're ready for war. You okay? And he turns around and here's Arjun, who's freaking out, going, I can't do this. What have I gotten myself into? What have we come to? This isn't worth it. I'm not, it's not worth fighting all of these people I love. I don't want the kingdom. I don't want the whole cause. This is stupid. And he sort of says, I don't want to do this. I will not fight. He says, I will not fight. And he puts the bow and arrow down. So basically, the Bhagavad Gita is a big pep talk from Krishna about life. Sometimes in life, life is hard. And we panic and we say, I can't do this. I can't go to work. I can't face my boss. I can't deal with an illness. There's a lot of I can'ts that we have. And so the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna plays the role of a friend, a father, a god, a psychiatrist, a confidant, mother, father. And he, through the rest of the whole Bhagavad Gita, kind of brings Arjun to his feet and says, get up and fight. And this fight is a metaphor for life. So get up, face your fears, get up and fight, do your duty, do it correctly, but always do the right thing. And right now this fight is against this evil kingdom. Do the right thing. So, and in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses various tactics. Some of them are fear-based, some of them are love-based, some of them are tough love-based, some of them are gently scolding, What kind of man are you? Be a man, get up, that sort of thing. Some of them are loving. Some of them are outright saying, well, this is foolish. So he uses all sorts of tactics to sort of wake Arjun up and get him to fight. So I know we just we need days to talk about the Gita, but in this context, you see Sanjay. Now, if you look at this picture, you see this blind king with a beard. He has no eyes. His name is Dasharath. He is the father of the bad side. He is the king. His sons are on the bad side, the Kauravs side. His sons are the Kauravs. And Sanjay is his charioteer. And Dhritarashtra is sitting in his kingdom going, oh my gosh, so today's the day of the war. What's going on? I can't see it. I want to know what's going on. Sanjay has the gift of clairvoyance and clairaudience. So he can actually see. Sanjay is a very advanced yogi and a very advanced devotee of Krishna. So Sanjay can actually hear and see everything that's happening on the battlefield, and he relays this to Dhritarashtra. But in doing so, he actually relays the entire Bhagavad Gita to us. So that's the background between this background of this picture in the context. All right. So how philosophical is this going to be? Just enough, not too much. The core of yoga philosophy is about connection with the divine. Yoga means, it comes from the root word yuj. Yuj means to join or to yoke. So this is about connecting with the divine. Remember, yoga is not just about asanas and breathing. It is about connecting with the divine. And the exercise portion of yoga is called hatha yoga, but there are different types of yoga. There is bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion, karma yoga, the devotion of right action. There are many branches of yoga. So all of them lead to the divine. So we want to help you to connect with the essential concepts of yoga practice. And a lot of times, many people, what they do when they study the Gita, because it's so vast, they explore a verse a day. Because each verse, you could meditate on one verse in the Gita and reach enlightenment. So if you explore one verse a day, there's plenty of things for you to think about and work on. So even that, you could even do one verse a week and just try to live like that verse tells you to live. And even that is difficult. So explore a little at a time. And it's like going to the spa for your soul. The Gita is about connecting. Yoga is about connecting. And you should do it in the way that works for you. And indeed, in the Gita, Krishna gives many different types of yoga to appeal to different types of people. Some people are intellectual. They're not into the bhakti, which is devotion. Some people say, you know what? I don't care about that scientific stuff. I'm a feeler. I'm not a thinker. I'm a feeler. So I'm going to approach God from a devotional standpoint. The funny thing is, in the end, all of these practices merge together. You can't have devotion without knowledge, and you can't have knowledge without devotion. But you can start out in your own way. And when you finally reach enlightenment, when you're on that mountain peak and you look down, you can see all of the paths lead up to the mountain. So Mahatma Gandhi read the Gita, and he always said he was a big devotee of Krishna and Ram. Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. Depending on the school of thought, some people say Krishna is the super soul and Vishnu is his expansion. Either way is correct. I'm just exposing you to different philosophies in India. India is Hinduism is a monotheistic religion. However, there are millions of gods, and they reach, basically they are aspects of one God. In fact, I had written a blog about this very topic in our college. I think in one of the forums, one of the students had a question, and I talked about the polytheism in Hinduism, but how it's really a monotheistic religion, and how what the position of these gods and demigods, what their function was. But anyway, coming back to this, Bhagavad Gita, Gandhi said, "When doubt haunts me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to the Gita and find a verse to comfort me, and I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meanings from it every day." Henry David Thoreau said, "In the morning I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal, I don't know how to pronounce that, philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial." Albert Einstein said, "When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous." And many, many others. In fact, in India, when you're in court, you swear on the Bible. Here, if you are a Hindu, you put your hand on the Gita and take your oath. So these are some quotes. There's so many. These are a few famous people. So, like I said, the verbal root yuj means to connect, to engage, to yoke, as in yoking oxen to a cart. Literally, engaging the mind and senses and connecting to the divine. This is the core, this is the essence of yoga practice. And there are many different forms of yoga, such as Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. Hatha Yoga is the exercise portion that the West is familiar with. But you have these other forms of yoga which are equally important, if not more. The aims of all forms of yoga is union with the divine. So let's talk about Atma, the science of the self. Atma means self, Atman. Atma Tattva. The first topic presented is the eternal individual nature of the Atma or soul. So the Atma is the witness. The Atma is that which is unharmed and resides within all of us. It is the same within all of us. So the identity of the living being, the true identity, is the spiritual Atma, not this outer sheath made out of carbon and oxygen that disintegrates and goes back to the elements after we die. This Atma is distinct from the mind, the intelligence and ego, and the physical body. It is above the 5 koshas. So you guys have learned about the koshas. It is distinct, is separate from the 5 koshas. The mind, intelligence, and ego are compared to a shirt or undershirt. They comprise the subtle body, which is the immediate covering of the Atma, and the physical body is compared to an overcoat. Okay? So at the time of death, the Atma sheds the overcoat and sheds all of these bodies. It is purely what it is it's a spark of God. So when you look around at other living beings, I always tell my kids, the other day the kids wanted to, when they were really little, the other day we were trying to get a spider out of the house with a cup and a paper and trying not to kill it. When they were little, I used to tell them, the driver of the car is the same, just the car is different. So that spider, the driver inside of that spider is the same as the driver inside you and me. It's just that the car is a different model. So don't kill the spider. So this concept of the self as Atma figures prominently into all discussions of yoga in the Gita. So verse after verse after verse, Krishna talks about the Atman or Atma. Many verses use a combination of metaphor to describe how the Atma is not really part of worldly existence, but identifies with matter via the coverings of ego, ahankar, mind, and the intellect. The Atma, again, is separate from worldly existence, but it operates through, and it operates and interacts with matter and identifies with matter through these coverings. Right? Just like you get in a car and you navigate the roads through the car, similarly, and you interact with the world through that car. Arjuna is strongly told to rise above the sense of bodily identity in order to focus on the aims of yoga practice. So basically, Krishna, through various methods and through this pep talk, tells him to look at the core of the matter. Who are you? And at the end of the day, who are you? You are Atman. Rise, know your divinity. That is who you are. You are not this body, your eternal self. So knowing that nothing can hurt that eternal self, it is eternal, it is God. Weapons cannot destroy it. Fire cannot burn it. Wind cannot dry it. Water cannot drench it. Knowing that, who you are, rise above the world and focus on the aims of human existence. What is your mission in this life, while encased in this human body? So there are different types of yoga as we described. Ashtanga, the eightfold. Ashta means 8, like octa. Ashta, anga means limb. So the 8-limbed or eightfold path of yoga. Jnana yoga. Now this is pronounced differently in different regions of India. So sometimes you'll hear jnana, sometimes you'll hear jnana, sometimes jnana, and sometimes gosh, I think in Gujarat they would even say some other pronunciation. It's not coming to me. Gnan, I think. Karma is a yoga of action without attachment. Bhakti is the yoga of devotion. So Hatha and Dhyana yoga are synonyms for Ashtanga yoga. Hatha means hard, Dhyana means contemplation, so the penultimate stage of Ashtanga. So let's talk about Ashtanga yoga, the eightfold yoga system. In one form or another, it's probably the system of yoga most familiar in Western countries. The 8 parts are yama, rules, niyama, restrictions, asana, postures, pranayam, control of the breath force, pratyahara, withdrawal of engagement of the senses with sense objects, dharana, studying consciousness and existence, and dhyana, single-pointed meditation, and samadhi, trance with full absorption. Jnana yoga is the yoga of knowledge. So the practitioner must clear the mind by rigid, austere lifestyle, avoiding all necessary mundane work and entanglements. There's an intense focus on philosophical discrimination by careful systematic study of the Upanishads and application of rigorous knowledge, nyaya. By elimination of non-eternal, the practitioner seeks liberation from the mundane world, moksha, specifically by entering into the unlimited, formless, effulgent aspect of Brahman. Again, Monica ji, I think I mentioned Brahman, and Brahman in that blog that I was talking about, because people often get confused by those terms. So this is the yoga of knowledge. It requires a disciplined mind. It requires logic, and a lot of people can't do it. A lot of people can, but a lot of people feel it is dry. People who are into bhakti, people who like to chant, who like to talk to God, people who like to let the tears flow when they think about God, people who like to talk about God's pastimes on earth. And this God could be your God, could be Jesus, could be Krishna. God with a capital G. I'm leaving it open. But this jnana yoga is sometimes very difficult, and it requires a special kind of person. I personally am more of a bhakti kind of person. But, every person, whether you practice bhakti, like I said, or jnana, you acquire the other yogas along with it. So one can't exist without the others. It's just a matter of where you start off. So some people like to start off with this rigid austerity and this discipline. And some people like the softer approach. They're equal. They're equally powerful. In fact, in Sri Krishna's life, in his life story, where he grew up in his childhood, that whole scene where he grew up in this farming kind of agricultural community, his mother, his father, his friends, the gopas, his girlfriends, female friends rather, gopis, that whole part of his life was all about bhakti. And so a lot of these people, they were simple villagers. They used to say, well, we don't know about this philosophy business. All we know is to love Krishna. That is a valid approach. And it's a very sweet approach. Bhakti yoga is the yoga of devotion. This is something I think in the Kali Yuga, in the present age, is an easy path. It appeals to the love within us. It is viewing the divine in a supremely personal form. In Hinduism or Vedic religion, God is formless. He doesn't have a face. He doesn't have a gender. He's pure energy. He's limitless. We cannot use our limited speech in any language, in any earthly language, to describe him, it, she. So that is why in Hinduism, you'll see God with 1,000 arms. Sometimes God is a woman. Sometimes God is a man. Sometimes he's half woman, half man, because we are using our own earthly construct, our own earthly I don't know what you would say, but whatever we know to construct this God, almost like we are constructing God in our image, right? So we can relate to him because he's formless. But when we bring him in a personal form, he becomes our friend. He becomes our mother, our father. He becomes our child. So in Krishna's life, when you read his life story, the people close to him, how they loved him, knowing that he was God on earth. His mother loved him as a baby. It's just, his friends loved him as friends. They would sit together and joke together and laugh together and hang out. So that is bhakti, seeing God in a supremely human personal form. Not human, but supremely personal form. So the divine exists in three aspects: the personal Bhagavan, the all-pervading super soul or Paramatman, and Brahman, which is just beyond our comprehension. The sun, or Surya Narayan is considered to be a spark of the supremely effulgent Brahma. So when we see the sun in the sky in India, many people will bow to the sun because that is the brightest thing they've ever seen. And that is the closest, they know that the sun is 1/1,000,000th of the energy of God, but it is so powerful that is considered a minute spark. So let me bow to it, because if the sun is this powerful, how powerful must God be? So let me bow to the sun, knowing that this is just but a spark of the supremely effulgent Brahman. Practices include kirtana, so singing certain songs, hearing, which is shruti, remembering, which is smaran, and if you speak Punjabi, simran. Offering, so offering naivedya, so offering food, offering anything. You get your first paycheck, you put it in your altar and you say, you know what, Krishna, or whoever, I couldn't have done this without you. This is really ultimately yours, thank you. That is an offering. Offering anything to God, even some water or a flower or just a leaf or just a fruit, knowing that really this is all his anyway, but just offering it to him is considered bhakti. My guru used to tell us that why do we bother offering things to God when the whole world belongs to him? Who are we to offer him? And the analogy he used to give is that if you were to give a small child a box of chocolates, you as an adult gave a 5-year-old a box of chocolates, and that little boy and little girl opens up the box of chocolates, and instead of eating the whole box of chocolates for himself, turns around and offers you a piece. Wouldn't that warm your heart? Even though you gave that child that box of chocolates, the fact that child even thought of you and gave you offered you a little piece of that, wouldn't that be, isn't that so touching? So that is why we offer to God. The aim of bhakti yogis is to be united with the divine as the supreme person through loving service. And that loving service could be being the best you are at your career, serving others through your career. You're an accountant, you're a nurse, you're a teacher, you're a sanitation engineer, you're a plumber, you're whatever work you do, you see it as a service to the world and to the supreme person. Bhakti, and without ego. Bhakti comes from the root bhaja, to share of oneself. I know let me look at the time. It's 8:41. Okay, and I can't see the chat, so I don't know if someone's telling me to wrap up. Let me, Monica G, just come out and under the loudspeaker and tell me if I need to speed up, because I can't see the chat window. Yoga and lifestyle. So yoga practice as described in the Gita, involves our entire lifestyle. Since all yoga practice involves directing or conquering the mind, yoga sadhana or practice thrives on clean, sattvic habits of the mind, of the body, diet, recreation, and speech. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Even adopting part of the principles of yoga practice is beneficial. We have to find the right balance for ourselves before we can help others do so meaningfully. Meaning, we have to practice what we preach. So we have to adopt at least some of these principles. That reminds me of a shlok from the Gita. Krishna says, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavyam samyak vyavasito hisam. So he says, even if, api chet, even if, api chet suduracharo, even if the worst villain, Sudurachara, is the worst person, the absolute criminal, api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak, if he turns to me and bhajate, he worships me continuously, he becomes a sadhu, he becomes a good person. Even if he's had a horrible past and he changes his life and he surrenders to me, he becomes a sadhu. I'm probably not, there are better ways to explain that shloka. I'm probably not doing it justice, but I just wanted to let you know that even if the worst of us adopts the yoga and transforms ourselves, good habits, good mind, body, diet, recreation, speech, we become a better person. And the next line is Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. He quickly becomes a dharmatman. He becomes a good person, quickly. So associating yourselves with good things changes you quickly. As does associating yourselves with bad things. You can become quickly, if you fall off the good path. So why does sattvic existence benefit the mind? The mind arises from ahankar in sattva guna. The mind is active and gets imbalanced to varying degrees by influence of rajas and tamas. So the mind is chanchala, it is fickle, it is restless, it is ever moving, and it is active. So it's easily influenced by things around it, by stimuli from the senses. Sattva guna is the relative absence of rajas and tamas. Rajas is the mode of passion, tamas is the mode of ignorance, and sattva is the mode of goodness. I don't know if you've already covered this. It's probably beyond the scope of this talk in the next 15 minutes if I have to wrap up. But these are stages of the mind, 3 stages of existence, through which, if you remember Sankhya philosophy, were created to regulate the world and also our mind. All of us need rajas, sattva, and tamas. Our mind exists in all 3 at different times in our life, even throughout the daytime. So I won't get into it too much here. I think it's too long of a discussion. So the mind exists in a cycle of thinking, feeling, and willing. And in order to do so, it has to cycle through these 3 gunas. So the chapters of the Gita, there are 18 chapters. The first chapter, setting the stage, Arjuna expresses his doubt. It's called the dejection of Arjuna. If you read most English commentaries, it'll say the dejection of Arjuna, where he basically goes out onto the field, sees everyone, freaks out, has a panic attack, and says, I will not fight, and sits down. That's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 is Sankhya Yoga and Atma Tattva. So Sankhya philosophy. 3 is Karma. 4 is Jnana. 5 is Karma Sannyasa Yoga, yoga through renunciation of action. 6 is Dhyana Yoga, which is like Ashtanga Yoga. Number 7, chapter 7 is Vijnana Yoga. Number 8 is absolute deliverance, Taraka Brahma Yoga. Chapter 9 is Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga, yoga through confidential knowledge. Raja Guhya, Guhya means secret, the secret kingly knowledge. Vibhuti Yoga is yoga through knowledge of the opulence of the Supreme. Chapter 10 is really fun. It's a really fun chapter because Krishna kind of has to jolt Arjuna a little bit, and he sets the stage by saying, you don't know who I am. I am of all the I am, and he lists his attributes. Who I am. I am your friend, Krishna. Yes, but because of Maya, the illusion of Maya, the spell of Maya, sometimes you see me as your friend, you joke around with me, but this is who I am. And he sort of gives his full glory. He talks about it. And in chapter 11, he gives Vishwarupa Darshan. He gives Arjuna special eyes. He says, Divyam dadami te chakshuhu pashyame yogam aishwaram. He gives him special eyes. He says, your eyes, your human eyes cannot see me. Your fleshy eyes cannot tolerate my actual form. Let me give you special eyes in order to see my full view. And he gives Arjuna right there in the middle of the battlefield. No one else can see it, but Krishna stops time and gives Arjuna a full darshan, which is a full viewing of his true form, which includes millions of gods. And it's actually quite frightening. It frightens Arjuna to see Krishna as time. And Krishna, is this friendly, loving kind of friend in real life. And then when he sees this almost terrific, awesome, scary form of Krishna, where Krishna is swallowing the opposing army, what he sees is he sees the opposing army, the warriors flying into Krishna's mouth and getting stuck in his teeth. And being crushed by Krishna's teeth. And it's such a horrible sight because Krishna is time, and time destroys and eats away at everything. And when Krishna sees that God as time, as Father Time, it is so horrible that Krishna begs him, please, enough. Please come back to your two-armed form, your four-armed form, your sweet form. The form that talks to me and loves me, the divine personal form, I can't take it anymore. So that is, you must read it, and it's amazing. And then chapter 12 is Bhakti Yoga, how to treat God as your friend, how to give him your love, and not just your friend, but just whatever relation you have with God, how to do it with love. 13 is Prakriti Purusha Vibhaga Yoga, nature and enjoyer, etc., etc. Let me look at the timing. Gunatraya Vibhaga is 14, the three modes of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Understanding the supreme person is Purushottam Yoga. Chapter 15 is the shortest chapter. So in India, when children learn the Gita, there's a lot of times Gita competitions where kids memorize the Gita and go on stage and read and through memory recite the Gita. They usually pick chapter 15 because it's really short. Chapter 16 is the divine and divine and demonic qualities. 17 is faith according to the three gunas, and 18th is moksha yoga, yoga of liberation, which is ultimately the goal for all of us, is moksha. Bhagavad Gita is an essential yoga text. It covers a wide area of yoga practice. Everyone should try to get their hands on a copy. Rather than try to read it all at once, take a verse every day and let it digest, meditate on it. Try to incorporate something in your life and practice. There is, I don't know if maybe, Monica G, if you have to mute this, but the Gita, there's so many versions. I like Yogananda's, because most of you may be familiar with him. He wrote a commentary on the Gita called God Talks to Arjuna, or God Speaks to Arjuna. So that is a good one to start with. There are many commentaries, Swami Vivekananda, there's so many. But that's one that I like, and I feel like if many of you are familiar in the West with Yogananda and the autobiography of a yoga, then you might want to start with God Talks to Arjuna. I think it's God Speaks with Arjuna. I didn't know if we were allowed to plug anything, so I asked Monica G to mute that part of my talk, but it's a good way to start. Try to incorporate something in your life and practice with the Gita. It isn't, every yoga teacher has, if you don't pick up the Gita and thumb through it at least, then teaching yoga on the mat is a fraud. I'm just going to be blunt, because it just becomes an exercise. It just becomes a hold this pose, okay, breathe, pretend your body's being pulled up by a string. It becomes all of that. It's not connecting. And the whole goal of any of these yogas, Hatha Yoga included, is to connect. So There'll be regular Gita webcasts, and those are to be announced. Okay. Recommended editions. There is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is one. There is one by B.V. Narayan, Swami B.V. Narayan, bit esoteric, has many references. So it depends on which you want to start with, okay? All right, I think that was the last slide. I have no idea what went on while I was talking, if there were questions, or let me now look at the chat. But I can mute myself, and if anyone wants to, oh yeah, so there's Monica G, you did put in my blog, and that blog was also, I think, Monica G put her input in that and typed up the final version of what you see. So I have to give her credit. She edited that and yeah. So okay, I'm gonna go through the chat, but I'm gonna mute myself. Thanks everyone. Hope that was helpful. And if I'm missing anything, please ask Atulji and Monica G. Thanks.
Aparna ji,
Yes.
I just wanted to, I put this link, if you could share that, or I could share it. It's a link where the commentaries of, because there's like literally thousands of commentaries in Bhagavad Gita out there.
Yes.
And Atul has specified it must come from a Vaishnava Acharya.
Okay.
So there's this website.
Sure.
Which is, I put a link there, and that website, let me just share that. Can I, if you stop your screen, I'll start sharing it.
Okay, yeah, let me get out. Okay.
So can everybody see this? Can you see this? This is a website. I just put a link there. It's bhagavadgita.org. You should save it. And the reason I love it so much is it is in, it's not in Russian, unfortunately. I thought it might be, but there's like all these Hindi, English, Bengali. There's all these. Oh, there's in Russian. There you go, Tatiana. Not that I would be able to read it, but they have translation, number one. Number two, so you have 4 different commentaries from 4 different Vaishnava sampradayas. Of course, this is the one that we follow, but it could be anyone. And then if you, let's say you open a verse, any verse of the Bhagavad Gita 15, and you can actually hear it. So if you play it, and then every single word is translated, and yeah, so it's a very simple one. There's that, Anvaya, and translation. And yeah, so this is my go-to as well. These are the chapters. You can start from chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, chapter 3, Karma Yoga, chapter 4, Jnana Yoga, and whatnot. All right.
Oh, and I just looking at the chat, I think I accidentally must have said Dasharath. I meant Dhritarashtra.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Slip of tongue.
But I'm pretty sure nobody even noticed, but only I noticed. I said Dasharath. I'm sorry, I had to stop you right there.
Oops.
Yes, it's like my 3-year-old says that, Bhim was fighting with Ravana. I'm like, Bhim was not fighting with Ravana. So it's, yeah. All right. So we have just, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation, as always, Aparna ji. We have a very short, like a 20-minute presentation left. If you guys want to take a couple of minutes break, and then we're going to talk about nadis and chakras. And this is your first lecture for Ayurveda and the mind. Okay.